Why did the only naked ape on Earth begin building a second skin? Were clothes invented for cold, for shame, for status, or for survival? And how did a piece of hide help humans leave warm places and become a global species? Clothes are the only technology we forget we're wearing. A phone feels like a tool, a knife feels like a tool. But a shirt disappears into the body. That is strange because clothing may be one of the inventions that made us fully human. The simple answer is cold, but that is too small. Humans did not only cover themselves to stay warm, they covered wounds, carried things, crossed landscapes, protected skin, marked identity, managed shame, showed status, and turned the body into a social surface. Before clothes, the human body had already made a dangerous trade. We lost most of our body fur. That probably helped early humans release heat, sweat efficiently, and move for long distances in open landscapes. But a body designed to cool down has a problem when the world turns cold. A furry animal carries insulation everywhere. A human has to invent it. Rain, wind, thorns, insects, sun, night cold, snow, and sharp stone all touch naked skin directly. Clothing begins when the outside world becomes too expensive for the body to handle alone. A review on clothing and thermoregulation puts the problem bluntly. Human temperature regulation is built around a naked body, and by itself it limits humans mostly to warm environments. Clothing expands that limit. It lets a tropical body cheat climate. This is why the first clothes are so hard to find. Stone tools survive for hundreds of thousands of years. Skin, fur, plant fibre, sinew, bark and cord usually vanish. The history of clothing is mostly a history of ghosts, tools, traces, parasites and rare miracles of preservation. One of the strangest clues comes from lice. Head lice live in hair. Body lice are adapted to clothing, especially seams and folds close to the skin. So when body lice split from head lice, they may reveal when clothing became a regular human habitat. A study in molecular biology and evolution estimated that clothing lice diverged from head louse ancestors at least by about 83,000 years ago, and possibly as early as about 170,000 years ago. That does not give us the first shirt. It gives us a biological shadow. That shadow matters. It suggests clothing may have been part of human life long before farms, cities, kings, money, writing, and most famous monuments. Before civilization dressed itself in stone, humans had already learned to dress the body. But early clothing probably did not look like neat fabric. Imagine hides, furs, bark, woven grass, plant fibers, strips of sinew, wrapped skins, knotted cords, and pieces adjusted again and again by hands that had no word for fashion but understood survival perfectly. A loose hide can keep you warm while sitting, but it is terrible if you need to climb, hunt, carry a child, run from danger, or work with both hands. The real revolution was not just covering the body, it was fastening the covering to movement. This is where tools begin to speak. Hide scrapers can prepare skins, awls can pierce holes, bone points can work fibre, needles can pull thread through material. Even when the clothing is gone, the workshop remains. An eyed needle is a tiny piece of engineering. It needs a sharp point, a slender body, and a hole small enough to hold thread without snapping. That little eye means the maker was not only cutting and wrapping, they were joining materials with precision. Recent work on Paleolithic eyed needles argues that these tools are not just evidence for warmth, they also mark the evolution of dress, clothing as display, identity, and social communication. In other words, once people could sew better, clothes could say more. Another clue comes from fibre. At Zudzuana Cave in Georgia, researchers reported wild flax fibres from Upper Paleolithic layers, with evidence that some fibres had been twisted or coloured. Fibre technology does not automatically mean shirts, but it shows humans were manipulating flexible materials in sophisticated ways. String is one of those inventions that hides in plain sight. With string you can tie, sew, trap, bind, carry, hang, repair, decorate and close. A thread can turn separate pieces into one system. It is small, but it changes the body. Once clothing fits, the body becomes a platform. You can attach a pouch, carry a tool, protect a wound, cover a baby, keep heat around the chest, keep feet from freezing, and move through places that would punish naked skin. This is the survival answer. Humans started wearing clothes because our bodies became powerful but exposed. We could sweat, travel, think, cooperate, and build tools. But the same naked skin that helped us release heat also made cold landscapes dangerous. But survival is only half the story. The moment clothing is visible, it becomes social. A hide can show skill, a colour can show group identity, a shell can show distance travelled, a pattern can say who belongs, who has status, who is mature, who is protected. That is where shame enters carefully. We should not imagine every ancient group thinking like a modern city. Ideas of modesty differ wildly across cultures, but clothing makes nakedness meaningful in a new way, because the covered body creates rules around what is shown and what is hidden. Before clothing, the body is simply present. After clothing, the body can be edited, covered here, displayed there, decorated here, restricted there. Clothes give society a handle on the body. That handle can protect, but it can also control. So the question is not whether clothes were invented for cold or shame. The question is how one technology became both. First, it protects skin from the environment, then it protects the social self from exposure, then it becomes a language. Climate still drove the hardest pressure. As humans moved into colder regions, simple coverings were not enough. Wind steals heat, wet clothing steals heat, bare feet lose function, fingers lose precision. Cold does not merely feel uncomfortable, cold makes the body fail. This is why fitted clothing matters. A wrapped skin can fall open, a stitched sleeve stays with the arm, a tied shoe stays with the foot, a fitted hood protects the head while the hands remain free. Tailoring is mobility made warm. Neanderthals and early modern humans both faced cold worlds, and the details of their clothing are debated because actual garments almost never survive. But the broader point is clear. In Ice Age environments, naked intelligence was not enough. Intelligence had to be worn. Rare preservation sometimes gives us a physical glimpse. A recent Science Advances study of perishable technologies from the North American Great Basin reported sewn hide, cordage, and fine bone needles from dry cave contexts around the end of the Ice Age. The sewn hide may have been part of clothing, footwear, a bag, or a portable shelter. That uncertainty is important. Archaeology does not need fake certainty to be powerful. The power is that someone prepared hide, pierced it, stitched it, and made flexible material hold together across 12,000 years. That find is much younger than the possible origin of clothing, but it helps us see what older clothing probably needed. Prepared skin, cord, holes, knots, repair, fit, and knowledge passed from hand to hand. Clothes were not objects only, they were learned procedures. Put the clues together and a timeline appears. Lice suggest clothing may be very old. Needles show sewing becoming precise. Fibers show flexible material technologies. Rare hides show what usually disappears. The story is not one invention. It is a long chain of human solutions. Clothing also changed energy. A warm covering means the body spends fewer calories fighting cold. A protected foot travels farther. A covered infant has better odds. A repaired garment saves labour. In a world where every calorie matters, insulation can be the difference between expansion and death. And once clothing saves energy, it also creates value. The best hide, the strongest cord, the brightest pigment, the rarest shell, the cleanest stitching, the warmest hood. Clothing can become wealth before coins exist, status before crowns exist, identity before flags exist. That is why clothing is not a small topic. It sits at the crossing of biology, climate, technology, sex, status, shame, migration, and memory. It is survival you can see, culture you can touch, and identity wrapped directly around skin. So why did humans start wearing clothes? Not because one day someone invented fashion. Not because shame suddenly appeared. Humans started wearing clothes because the naked body could not go everywhere the human mind wanted to go. Clothing gave us a portable climate, a moving shelter, a social signal, and eventually a way to become different people in different places. It let the body carry home on its surface. The first garment was not just fabric, it was permission to leave. And that is the hidden power of the second skin. Before cities, before writing, before money, before borders, humans learned to wrap the body in invention. We did not conquer the world naked. We stitched our way into it,